This time I'll open the public hearing to the floor for comments from residents. Please come forward, give your name and address for the minutes, and state your feelings on the subject. And please try and refrain from repeating or going on so that we make sure everybody gets a chance to speak. And once we've gone through everybody, then we can make a decision on whether we can go on further. Is there anybody from the audience that wishes to speak to the council on this matter?
David Janke, 8428 Eastwood Road. As I look at this project and I look up Highway 10 to Anoka, we're almost in the country down here. And what I'm scared of is kind of a question for you is, if this particular project doesn't go through, or working with these developers, with our zoning, couldn't another developer come in and say, I'm going to do this because legally I can, and we don't have really the choice then of what we put in there, what we don't.
That's correct. If they comply with the existing zoning, and Pam can give you a technical rendition on what that zoning means. Basically, it can mean anything from strip shopping centers to, what else, Pam?
It's a B1 neighborhood business district.
Okay.
So it's small retail stores is what it could
Okay.
be.
Like video stores, grocery, that kind of thing.
Barber shops, beauty parlors.
Bookstores.
that kind of thing. It's a pretty limited list because it is neighborhood business. You couldn't, for example, have fast food restaurants or grocery stores or convenience markets. It's
And
small
density-wise?
retail.
Density-wise?
Well, there isn't any footage limit, it's just parking and setbacks.
Okay.
So you could amass quite a bit of footage on there as long as you had enough parking and setbacks.
Could you repeat Mounds View Square?
Only some of the uses.
Okay.
And the other thing is sooner or later, I mean, like, it's true, it's going to be developed, so sooner or later, this council has to make a decision of what we're going to put in there or leave it open, period, and not have no business. Because like I said, when you go from here, there's Northtown, there's Banks, I mean, here to Anoka is completely filled with businesses, which maybe we could have had some. You know, and I feel for the residents on H2 and that stuff, but somehow there's some developers that I have seen that won't work with people, and it seems like these have. I've never met with them, but just listening to them and people that live over there, they certainly have done that. So I just, as a resident, I think we got to seriously look at this project, or we'll be facing another one down the line.
Thank you, Dave. Anybody else?
Can I get a clarification from Mr. Long
Sure.
on Pam's statement? I think the comparison was made to Mounds View Square. Now, Bob, from my experiences, if it's got a B hung on that piece of property, and somebody comes in with a B2, we'd be pretty hard pressed to deny with the view of the overall mix on the highway seems to be going with business. Is that correct? It's,
Well, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Quick, Pam's correct. It's currently B1 in the sense that, and so that has the limitations set forth in the B1 category of your zoning code. And for someone to come in and ask for, let's say, a B2 use or a B3 use, they'd have to come before the council
Yeah.
separately from any PUD project and do a rezoning request. And you wouldn't be obligated to grant a rezoning just because somebody was asking. But I think the one point that maybe should be clarified is if a PUD was given in this case, and it allowed for a range of use there according to a final plan that the council approved, and this for whatever reason fell apart down the road, it wouldn't mean that somebody else would come along and piggyback on this PUD and do something else. They'd have to come back to the process. I think Pam stated that, so.
no, the point I'm trying to get across is the last time that we denied a B, we ended up in court. And the judge said, and this is a real short quote, That's where business belongs, Highway 10. End of discussion. The business is there today. That was the point I'm trying to make. So in other words, if that's any kind of a reading, we would be hard pressed to make it anything less. That's the only point I'm trying to make across.
And I'm not familiar with that case. I just was, and I'm not arguing that somebody wouldn't come in and argue it should be rezoned to a higher use, and there would be always a potential for dispute on that, but at least you don't, legally, you're not required to give a rezoning. It's not like a conditional use permit application. A rezoning is a quite different matter, and so you have a little more discretion, frankly, up here than you would.
But ultimately, it could go to the judge, and then the decision is
Sure.
made by one person.
Well, I think, in reference to Mr. Jenke's question, we can find some answers in the traffic study. Under the current zoning, without even getting into litigation over an upzoning, we have a traffic count of 5,635, and on the proposal, we have a traffic count of 2,619. That's without the offices. So I think we can take a clue from that as to what the current zoning can produce in terms of traffic as compared to the proposal. And I think traffic has been the main concern of everybody involved. I think that's been number one all through the entire process. Yes, sir.